Okay, so here's something wild. Open your LinkedIn right now. No, seriously, do it. Look at your bio. Does it say you're a scalable solution provider? An optimized workflow specialist? A high-impact delivery engine? I've got some bad news for you. You don't sound like a human being. You sound like the instruction manual for a mid-range toaster. We've spent the last decade keywords stuffing our identities until we've basically turned ourselves into human APIs, just a single clickable endpoint designed to fit perfectly into someone else's digital architecture. We think this makes us indispensable. We think this optimization is our armor. But here's the thing that blew my mind when I started digging into this. The more perfect and optimized you become, the easier you are to delete. To think about that 15-second paralysis you feel when your creative cloud tool crashes or the internet goes down. In that silence, when the tools stop working, who are you? For most of us, there's a terrifying glitch in our identity because we've offloaded our thinking to the system. We aren't creators anymore. We're just validators for the machine's output. We've become so specialized, so narrow, that we've lost the whole sight of what it means to actually exist. It's like we're proud of being a very specific screw in a very large machine, never realizing that the machine is currently learning how to 3D print screws for pennies. This isn't just a career crisis, it's a philosophical emergency. To understand how we ended up here, basically begging to be replaced by an algorithm, we have to go back to a literal 18th century pin factory. Because trust me, your 400 at one keel and your soul depend on what we find there. Let's talk about the word specialization. It comes from the Latin species, which originally meant a shining sight or an outward appearance. It used to describe the whole damn thing, but then came the Industrial Revolution and Adam Smith's famous pin factory. Suddenly, you weren't the guy who made the pin. You were the guy who straightened the wire, or the guy who sharpened the point. We traded being whole sites for being single steps. And enter Karl Marx. Now, regardless of how you feel about his politics, Marx had this incredible insight in 1844 that is terrifyingly relevant in 2026. He argued that labor produces not only commodities, it produces itself and the worker as a commodity. When you spend 8 hours a day being a specialist in one tiny narrow niche, you aren't just making a product. You are transforming yourself into a product. You are shaping your brain to be a high-fidelity training dataset. Think about it. For the last 3 years, you've been optimizing your workflow, using templates, following best practices, and narrowing your focus to be as efficient as possible. You thought you were building a career, but in reality, you were just providing the LLM with the perfect blueprint to replace you. Marx called this alienation. You become a stranger to your own work because your work is no longer an expression of your messy, complex humanity. It's just a standardized output. In the 1800s, this meant your hands were just extensions of a steam engine. In 2026, it means your expertise is just high-quality training data for the algorithm that will eventually deprecate you. We've spent 200 years winning the game of narrow and deep, but now the game has changed. AI doesn't struggle with experts. It struggles with the messy stuff. It loves experts because experts are predictable. Experts follow rules. Experts are, by definition, programmable. If your value is purely useful and efficient, you aren't an expert. You're a tool. And tools, my friends, are always swappable. This is the part that really messed with my head. We've been told our whole lives that the more specialized we are, the safer we are. Find your niche. Be the best at one thing. But in the age of AI, that is actually a death wish. Here's the intellectual shock. AI doesn't kill amateurs. It kills the perfect professional. Why? Because perfect is just another word for algorithmic. If your workflow is so refined that there's no waste, no friction, and no randomness, then you've already done 90% of the work for the software engineers. You've turned your job into a script. Aristotle, back in ancient Greece, saw this coming from a mile away. In his book Politics, he dropped this absolute bomb: to be always seeking after the useful does not become free and exalted souls. For the Greeks, if your only value was being useful for a specific task, you weren't a free person, you were effectively a tool. A living tool. They believed that true human excellence, what they called arete, was about being a whole person, not a microservice. Think about the in-between moments in your life. Staring at the rain. A child's messy scribble that somehow makes you cry. The way you solve a problem by connecting a random lyric from a 90s rock song to a coding bug. These are inefficient moments. They have zero market value, and that is exactly why they are your only defense. AI can replicate your expertise because expertise is a pattern, but AI cannot replicate your mess. It can't replicate the weird cross-domain collisions that happen when a human brain gets bored or distracted. When we try to be perfect professionals, we are literally trying to beat the computer at its own game. Spoiler alert, you will lose. You aren't being replaced because you're failing. You're being replaced because you've become too good at being a machine. The more optimized you are, the more programmable you are. If you want to survive 2026, you have to stop trying to be a perfect microservice and start reclaiming your right to be beautifully, radically useless. So what do we actually do? How do we stop being human APIs? We need a little bit of analog sabotage. There's this viral trend on TikTok called inefficiency core, people doing things the slow, manual way, like hand grinding flour or writing letters by hand. It's not just an aesthetic. It's an act of rebellion. It's a survival strategy. Here's a life hack that sounds like a joke but is actually dead serious. Get a zero ROI hobby. Spend 60 minutes a week on something that has absolutely zero market value. Learn a dead language. Try ancient pottery. Do something that you are objectively bad at and that no one will ever pay you for. This reclaims your useless humanity. It forces your brain out of optimization mode. Another thing, practice analog sabotage in your actual work. If you have a complex problem to solve, don't open a digital template. Grab a physical whiteboard or a plain piece of paper. Why? Because digital tools force your brain into preset paths. They suggest the next word, the next line of code, the next design element. They are nudging you back into the specialization trap. When you use a pencil and paper, you're forcing cross-domain collisions. You're letting your brain be messy. Research from David Epstein's book, Range, shows that in wicked, unpredictable environments, which is basically the world we live in now, generalists with diverse, wasted experiences consistently outperform the narrow specialists. The specialist is great until the environment changes. The generalist, the person with useless knowledge, is the one who survives the shift. We need to stop seeing inefficiency as a bug and start seeing it as the ultimate feature. It's the one thing the algorithm can't scale. Here's the final truth for 2026. Your moat, your protection against the machine isn't your degree or your 10 years of experience in a narrow field. Your moat is your range. It's your messiness. It's all the things about you that don't fit into a LinkedIn bio. So here's my challenge to you today. Go do one thing that provides absolutely zero market value. Don't post about it, don't look for likes, just exist in that useless space for 30 minutes. Reclaim the shining sight of being a whole person instead of a single step in a factory line. We've been conditioned to be afraid of failing at our careers, but I think we should be more afraid of something else. Are you afraid of losing your job? Or are you afraid of discovering who you actually are without that title? The algorithm is coming for the specialist, but it has no idea what to do with a whole messy, inefficient human being who refuses to be optimized. Stop trying to be the perfect screw, be the glitch in the machine instead. Reclaim your right to be useless. Because in a world of perfect tools, the most revolutionary thing you can be is a free soul. Thanks for exploring the depths with me today. Now go get messy.